Well, hey, Signature Real Estate Group. Thanks for joining us today. Good morning, and hope everybody had an amazing Memorial Day, and we are happy to have you back. We are still virtually doing sales meetings, obviously, and we're so glad that you're here. Before I get started, Janet had a couple of things that she wanted to run through real quick. So Janet, you're up.
Oh, yay. Okay, just like we've done everything we can to keep you informed about what's going on while we've been separated, we still have our office meetings every Tuesday at 9:30. We're also having office hours, broker office hours, Monday through Friday, 10:30 to 11:30, live on Zoom. And if you have any broker questions, just chime in and you may get 6 answers. But we're here to support you and keep you out of trouble. The other thing that we need, we're having to keep you just socialized, is we're still having our virtual happy hour every Friday at 5 o'clock. Last Friday, it was only the managers with the exception of one agent, but we have had up to 40 people in these virtual happy hours. They're a lot of fun, a way to connect. And just so you know, Summerlin is the last one, but today our doors are open. In fact, the front door is propped open. So we're here and there are agents in the office working. The other thing I want to remind you of is our monthly award, Agents of Signature. This is for someone in the company who goes above and beyond to do.
I'm going to stop you real quick because it's the spirit of Signature. I heard Agents of Signature.
Oh, I did? Okay.
It's okay. It's only
I
Tuesday.
script. I'm just ad-libbing.
I
So
know.
the Spirit Signature Award is awarded monthly to the agent who goes above and beyond to demonstrate the spirit of Signature, whether it's in the community, the neighborhood, a charitable organization. And so we need nominations. And the link for the nomination will be in your newsletter, which will go out Thursday morning sometime. And so please think about an agent who's really contributing to the spirit of our group and nominate them for the agent. A couple things I want to talk about have to do with MLS. One is NAR has a new policy that went into effect May 1st. It's called the Clear Cooperation Policy. And it basically says, and I'm going to read it from the MLS manual, within 1 day, business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS participants. Public marketing includes, but is not limited to, flyers displayed in windows, yard signs, digital marking on public-facing websites, brokerage websites displays, digital communication marketing, email blasts, sharing networks, and anything that would be available to the general public. So what that means to you, if you go take a listing and you're really excited about it and you pull out of the driveway and you stop and you take a picture and you sit in the driveway and you post it on Facebook and say, wow, I just took this fabulous listing. I've got a lot of stuff to do today. I'll probably put it in the MLS on Monday. No, you have advertised it. You must have it on within 1 business day. This is an NAR mandate. This is not from Las Vegas Realtors.
So can I jump in here really quick, Janet?
Really?
Do you mind? One of the things that I want to make sure agents understand that if you do publicly market the property on a Friday and you have a listing agreement with you on a Friday, and let's say we're in the middle of a holiday weekend and you have Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, your next business day would be
Monday
or Tuesday. It would be Tuesday if you have a long weekend. So ideally, if you marketed the property publicly on a Friday, this last Friday, today would be your first business day. So keep that in mind. If you get a property listing agreement on this coming Friday, then your first business day would be Monday. Okay.
So Janet, can I ask, and maybe you can get some clarity on this, is what constitutes advertising? If it has an address, that's advertising. What if I just post a picture of the front of the house and say, took a new listing? Does that, with no information about the actual property other than a picture, does that constitute?
That's considered advertising, I would think. And it says email blast. So if you email blast out a picture of the front of the house, you've advertised it.
Okay.
But there's no address, right? So there's no reference. That is a good question, Todd. Look at you thinking outside of the box.
You're being so picky.
But you gotta remember that people will follow you, right? There's people out there without a listing that want nothing more than to give crud to those that have them. And that's the people that are policing this. And so when you start promoting a listing, saying my listing, here it is, I think it's different than selling the sizzle. Hey, I have an upcoming listing that I haven't taken yet, right? It's going to be coming to the market. I mean, you didn't really tell me anything, but if you have a signed listing and you're withholding it, that's the whole point. As you said, hey, here's my new listing. Well, that's a signed listing, right?
Right. The other thing I want to talk about that I'm seeing more and more of is variable listings. Now, what this is, to explain it to you, you take a 6% listing and you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when this listing is sold, the commission will be 6%. However, if somebody in my office sells it, then I'll reduce your commission to 5%. But if I sell it myself, the commission will only be 4%. That is a variable listing. And there is a spot in the MLS that says variable on the commission. And if that is the case, you have to put in why. Yes, it's a variable commission. You have to let all the other agents out there know that I may have an advantage because depending on the situation, the seller may have to pay less commission. And here's the thing. According to MLS policy, if an agent calls you up and says, explain to me the terms of your variable commission, you must disclose it. They have a right to know what they are up against.
But you don't have to put it in agent to agent remarks up front?
No. You
I'm
just have to
clarifying
disclose
question.
it if asked. The other thing too, we don't see much of this anymore, and I think it's a shame. But if you write an offer on a listing, you have the right to present that offer to the seller yourself. Go in and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I have this wonderful couple who fell in love with your neighborhood because it's in the right school district. They don't want to move their children from school to school to school, and they really want your home, and here's what they're offering, and here is why. You have that right. So, but you need to call the listing agent and ask for permission to present your offer. And if the agent says, no, I can't be bothered with doing that, no, then you have the right to ask for it to be declined to be presented in person, must be signed by the seller. So you want to get your offers, know they're presented.
Hey, real quick before you go on from that though, it is important to note that the listing agent has the right to be there. So it's not you with their client by yourself.
Oh, absolutely. No, you cannot leave your client unrepresented. No.
You're letting the listing agent know I want to present in person. I always would take them a copy of the offer so they have one while we're reading it with the client.
Exactly.
And then just like with a counter offer, they have the right to come present that counter offer to your buyer in the same respect. And so both of those are equal playing field. The whole point is what Janet said is that, you know, if you put a good salesperson in front of a client that wants to sell and maybe their agent's not as strong on convincing them why their home was overpriced, when it comes from somebody else to that seller saying, hey, listen, I know your agent's doing a great job and I always try to be respectful of the listing agent, but I don't know if you're familiar with the recent comps that just happened. And that's what we based our offer off of. And it kind of takes some of that pressure off the listing agent to support them and say, hey, I'm trying to tell you you're overpriced and my client wants to buy your house. I've had it work. And then in the same respect on a counter offer, you know, you're crazy with your terms, Mr. Seller, and here's why my buyer's not going to accept that. And so it's kind of a cool dynamic to present in person.
It works. It really, really works. It's even better than the little love letters that buyers are writing to sellers in multiple situations. So that's about all I have before we get on. I just want to remind you, I've seen a lot of, excuse me, posts on Facebook asking questions, particularly about open houses, and we're going to get into that discussion later. But I got a little perturbed this weekend, and I responded to a post about, are we allowed to do them? We don't know. Some people are doing them. Other people say we can't do them. I don't know where we are. Well, if you read your newsletter, which comes to you every week in an email called Signature Buzz, I have put in there every week the status of open houses. So all you have to do is read your newsletter.
Janet, reading a newsletter is too hard. Why do you keep asking me to do that?
I expect you to do it because I want you to be educated. I want you to be informed. And if you're ever invited to the real estate division because you did something wrong, guess what? I'm invited too, and I don't want to go. But I can go and say, gee, real estate division commissioners, we've had this in our newsletter every week for 6 weeks. And here's the proof. And it's not my fault that the agent won't read a 3-minute read when I tried my best to educate them.
They just look like long newsletters. They're just bigger font. That's all.
Yeah, the bigger
Okay. I'll read it. Okay, I got you. I'll read it.
I've even put pictures in there for you, Todd.
That's the part I like. I just look at the picture.
a picture book now. So
Right.
hey,
So I know we've answered this question, but there was a question in regards to rental properties, and what about rental properties for advertising? I'm assuming that that's what the question was about, was for the clear cooperation. Can a rental property just be listed on Craigslist or Zillow without listing it on the MLS? So
it did not say if you have a signed listing agreement and you've advertised it, it must be listed in MLS. I have the policy right in front of me, section 4.1 of your MLS bylaws, and it says, it does not say.
And I'll sum it up for you. If you take a listing agreement, it needs to be put in the MLS, and you cannot market the property without a listing agreement. So the answer is you need to put them in the MLS.
And Tyson, if you don't know how to read, I'm sorry, but somebody will read it to you if you'd really like.
Well, Tyson was actually the reason I asked the question. I was concerned on Tyson's behalf.
Got it. Well, thank you
Asking
for
a friend. Good job, Todd.
asking.
All right. So when I get home, I'll teach you about that one.
Yeah, AEIOU.
And sometimes why, and sometimes
Sometimes why, exactly. So Janet, you did a bit of a review on MLS stuff. Can we expect more of that coming soon?
Yes, in June, all the brokers are going to be doing educational meetings on Zoom. And we had to pick a topic in advance, and my topic's going to be more on MLS rules and policies and the fines that come into play.
That sounds like fun.
Oh, yeah.
Really.
So I have a question. I don't know if anybody knows the answer. I don't, which is why I'm asking it. Do you remember we had a policy that came about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago? If you have ethics violations, then your picture will be posted with your name and the violation and what the fine was. Have we had anybody published yet?
So the interesting part about that is, so that passed 2 years ago at the national meeting, they said that you'd have a photo for that violation, and it would put what you did wrong, and that way people could, see your photo from 1986 and actually think that they know you. But the publication that we had that we were going to publish it in, the SNR, got changed. And so now there is no regular posting of the SNR, because it was not cost effective anymore to even virtually put out a magazine. But they did, Janet, you were on the board this year, they did buy some space in Homes Illustrated, I believe, because everyone reads that, to kind of promote, the stats and everything that's going on. I did hear last year, when I was still important, that they were going to be posting those on the GLVR website, or LVR website. Can't even get the site right anymore.
And then
those people.
there was another little caveat about you don't get published on your first offense. It had to be your second offense before you got published.
And you couldn't have any education requirements that were associated with the violation.
Yeah, something like that.
So
Right?
I sit on professional standards, and I've asked this question like I don't know how many times, because it's frustrating that we put a policy in place and then it doesn't happen. And what's happened, what I've been told has happened each time that someone has had a violation that qualified them for a free picture and a free publication, the board of directors has actually decided not to do that. So it's always seems to get stopped at the board of director level.
That's a non-starter, Todd, because the board of directors only can implement that which they have in place, right? And so if you don't have the process in place, it's easy for NAR to make rules that can't be implemented. So we've seen that all the time. The whole point of this is the Nevada Real Estate Division already publishes an open house, right? So if you're really stupid, you're going to be promoted to every licensee, which there are like almost 28,000 licensees, where there's only 18,000 realtors in the state. Our publication set up at GLVR, the only thing they have left is the website. So even if we give you a free photo and a free post, do you really believe that 10,000 or 15,000 realtors are going to crash the site when most of them don't even go on to check their dues or their bills? I just don't see it happening. So I don't think anyone lost out on anything major. I wanted to actually print a newspaper and send it out to everybody, but I'm only one vote of 18 and Janet's only one vote of 18. And so.
Well, and I will say,
You don't matter anymore, Chris.
No.
I will say this, Todd,
Didn't happen.
ever has come before us that Mary Smith did these horrible things, and this is her second violation, and we want to, her picture is going to be published. We've never, nothing like that has ever come for us to even stop it. It's not happened. So I don't know.
I think a lot of the issue is the fact that the hearing panels are issuing education, and education is a disqualifier of posting them. And so it goes down to the panels are on the punishment that they're giving out is disqualifying them from the ad.
True that.
Oh, there's that. Well, maybe you can ask about it at your board meeting on Thursday, Janet.
I'm already asking, I've already sent another motion to MLS that you requested, so.
Oh, sweet. Thank you. Well, while you're at it, lots of discussion about joining your board meeting. Those are open from what I understand, right?
No.
Technically they are, unless we are in executive session. But here's the thing, we have not met live. I know there's a lot of discussion on Facebook about this, and so let me just put this out there. We have not met live since February, and everybody's going, oh, everything is such a top secret. No, it's not. Just we haven't met live, and you would have to send in I'm assuming I'm not the president, send in a request saying, I'd like to join your board meeting for the open session. You know, please send me a link. But no one has done that. And here's the other thing. Tom is going to ask the board, you know, he has the authority to, President Tom Blanchard, to make the decision. But I do know at our board meeting on this Thursday, which will go all day, he's going to ask the board up front, do you want to invite people in via Zoom or do you not? And so it's going to be a board decision. I really don't care. I have nothing to hide.
We are well aware of that. Thank you very much. Fantastic. All right, moving on. Let's talk about some real stuff. Just kidding. All of that was awesome. You did mention that we were going to have a calendar in June for training that all of the brokers are doing. Chris, do you want to highlight a little bit about that?
Yeah, so of course, you know, we want to try to keep everyone safe within the COVID-19 mitigation restrictions. And so we don't want to compile everyone into the office and get everyone close together, even though we'd love to see you. So it's our goal to bring one-on-one trainings through Zoom, where we can basically fill a topic that's important to you in your business. And the nice part is we have an amazing team here that just knows everything about everything. And so I've asked every member of the team to teach some type of specialty course, whether it's 15 minutes on how to access the office and wipe down a conference room, to how to write an offer, and anything in between. And so every member of the team has agreed to take that on, and we're going to broadcast those on the Agents of Signature Facebook page. We're going to archive them somewhere fun that you can go back to, probably my signaturerealestate.net, so that you can go back and look at those videos. But everyone has agreed to put together a pretty amazing training calendar for all the offices to use with that. So look for that in June.
Awesome. And then we also have a couple of agents over the weekend. So historically, Memorial Day weekend has been a really good weekend to do open houses, right? I think that over the last several years, we've found that was a big, a big draw for buyers. And, we did have some guilty parties within the Las Vegas community. Not saying that it was at our office, but within the Las Vegas community that did open houses. So let's talk about that really quickly, because I think it's important that we discuss how open houses can be conducted at this time. And my understanding of the directive that, and by the way, all of this could change tonight, right? But as of right now, this very moment, open houses are not allowed, even on vacant properties. Now, my understanding is that the municipalities, however, differ in their in the way that they looked at the directive from the governor. So one municipality, meaning like the city or North Las Vegas or Henderson, feel like you may be able to do it, while another, the county, for instance, is like, hell no, don't you dare, we will fine you and take you and shame you, right? So where does that stand? I really want to hear it kind of from the state's perspective, because I know that the state is working pretty hard to get all these municipalities together. You're up, Chris.
All right. So this has probably been the most contentious thing I've had to deal with, is state presidents. Can I or can I not do open houses? And I never thought that would be my claim to fame. So number one, those that don't know, I built my entire real estate business from open houses because my parents were in the real estate business and I had to go out and meet new people. So Memorial Day was always the hottest weekend in real estate for open houses because everyone's out, that entire 4-day weekend, 3-day weekend. So it's pretty amazing for that. So the governor's orders have been a bit confusing, including for the governor. And so they put them together the night before, and they go through the AG's office, they go through the different departments of business and industry. All of the businesses that are affected by that order are usually called in some way. Our team at Carrera, Nevada, and at Nevada Realtors has been involved in everything to do with real estate. Some good, some bad. And so usually they'll give us a heads up and say, hey, guess what, in 30 minutes, we're going to roll this to the governor's office. You got to tell us what you think right now. And so his orders have been extended several times. And so the initial order that came out, the governor didn't want any interaction with people in groups in any way. So of course, with an open house, you have one party after the next, hopefully, if you have a good open house, coming through the door and it's people mingling in a space. And so initially in his order, he took out open houses completely, and he took out showings of tenant occupied properties. He didn't touch showings of a seller occupied property or a vacant property, but he did say it had to be by appointment. So right away, the state association rolled out that information. We shared it with everybody. And then that's where the confusion started. And so a lot of municipalities took the governor's order and said, well, we're going to take it a step further. We're going to fine you if we find out that within our city or county limits, you're doing these, we're going to fine you with some type of fee. I heard in the city of North Las Vegas, it's $1,000 per occurrence. I heard in the city of Henderson that they were actually sending out officers to police the area. They'd pick up your signs anyway in Henderson if you haven't been to the Henderson sign jail. But they were doing a lot to try to discourage anyone, including for sale by owners, from doing their own open houses, which they've seen happen as well. So then there was phase 0 to phase 1. And in that restriction, the governor kind of loosened up a lot of industry things, saying, yeah, restaurants can open, but they have to be, 50% of occupancy. Well, for some reason, there was a miscommunication, not from the state, but just internally in our industry on Facebook. Facebook is where you go to get all the info, right? And where they said, oh, well, now you can do open houses, it's allowable. No, nothing has changed from the initial directive to do with our industry in any way until May 30th. Tonight, the governor is expected to launch phase 2. I don't know what that's going to mean, because the governor asked our industry specifically. I convened what we call the governance group, which is all the local presidents, the entire state executive committee, the lobbying team, our PAC chair, our legislative chair, and I said, okay, the governor wants an opening plan for our industry, and we have to put it together, and we have 40 minutes to do it. And so thank God by that time, Carrera had already outlined some provisions for our industry that would allow us to open and to operate brokerages and best practices for that, which we've implemented every one of those steps. In that phase plan that we submitted, open houses in general would not open until phase 3. So unfortunately, that would mean it could even be 2 more weeks until that could happen. However, it means that all open houses would open back up with written permission. So if you have a property that's seller occupied or a property that's tenant occupied in phase 3, our recommendation was you would get a written letter from the tenant saying, I am allowing this agent to hold open houses. If for any reason they said, nope, we don't want you to do it, again, you can't hold open houses. The other thing in phase 3 that's important is when it comes to tenant occupied showings, that provision that we had where you couldn't bother the tenant would also change. And all you'd have to have is written permission again from the tenant. Just like if you put a key box on their house, you have to get a signed key box form. All of that would open back up. And then by phase 4, probably which would be the middle of June or the end of June, real estate normalcy as far as our regular practices would come back in some way with all the COVID mitigation restrictions that we currently have. So still washing your hands, still making sure that your open house is safe and secure. You would probably be liable to go in and wipe down the house you're holding open and then wipe it down when you leave. But all of those things would be in that phasing. So I think that's everything that you want to know.
Man, this is really a struggle having to wash my hands clear till the end of June. I'm not really sure if I can do it.
It's concerning that for some people it's a new thing, but I get what you're saying.
But let me also clarify really quickly, Chris. You said that phase 3 we're anticipating end of June, but that is all, I mean, this is all a hypothetical, right? Let's just be very clear that you guys need to pay attention to what we're talking about here in our sales meetings. Read your newsletters. We are constantly updating you on what's going on. You're extremely lucky to have our state president, you know, at our company. You're lucky to have Janet, who sits on the board of directors for our local association. So really pay attention, because these are the people that know what's happening before it actually hits most of the general public. So before you get that email with Tom's video on it, these guys know what's going on. So just know that this is all a hypothetical. We are hoping that we're back open at the end of June, but it could be later. Who knows?
So Chris, I have a question. So you stated that the governor's directive was to May 31st, no open houses. Yes. And in the state's recommendation of phase 3, we would be able to do open houses.
In a limited form.
Right, okay. If the governor comes out tonight and he doesn't say anything about open houses, since his directive was till the end of this month, does that open it up? So
no, the governor with his directive, there's a couple of moving parts to that, and that's why this is so difficult. So the governor has previously referenced opening plans for industries. And so if you remember, he assigned Marilyn Kirkpatrick, who's the head of our county commission, to be the chair of this industry group. If you will. So, you know, insurance, mortgage, all of these different parts that move within real estate. The real estate division actually has accepted our plan as their opening plan when it comes to this industry itself. And so unless the governor specifically addresses something and says, no, the AG says you can't do this, or we saw this as a practice that we want to omit, then they would revert back to the real estate division and say, here is your way of practicing that opening process. Now, what happened initially when the governor did his second major announcement, what was written in the plan or on the executive order and what he said were two different things. And he literally said no showings, right? He said no showings at all. And we had to clarify that to be no tenant occupied showings. And so, because that's what the order said. And so I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what he's going to say. And I can't imagine the stress.
Or what it's going to mean.
Or exactly, I can't imagine the stress that he's under. And I know that everyone, you know, when it started out, they were so thankful for all he's doing. And now people are pissed off and upset, you know, and I still believe that there's no playbook for this. You know, we're seeing across the nation, these different things are happening. But when it comes to our industry, you know, the only reason that we're even at the table or even having this discussion is because of all the hard work of our lobbying group, all of the PAC dollars that people have contributed to that fair share that you have. If it wasn't for that, and the relationship that we built with state legislators in the real estate division and the Department of Business and Industry. I just had a meeting with them last week with their director, Terry. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't even be having Zoom meetings. I mean, it would be that bad. And so I think the whole thing is just to stay positive with it. I know a lot of people are giving flack to those that have held open houses. Every time someone puts a sign up, Tom Blanchard and I receive texts. Oh, did you see this? Did you see this person? Go get them. You know, I mean, I don't get in a police car and drive over and arrest them. I mean, that's just not my job. But I think the one thing is everyone speculated that implementation or better yet, you know, policing these activities is extremely hard for the governor or for the municipalities. So I've had a lot of people that unfortunately have said, well, they're not going to catch me, so I'll just do it. Well, the problem with that is if the governor gets too upset or there's too many complaints or someone unfortunately gets sick because of it, they'll shut our industry down. And I was told that by the AG. Aaron Ford basically said that if we have any issues, we'll have no choice no matter what our relationship's like. So I think that's why the tension level is so high.
Well, let's not forget too, though, if people, sorry, Todd, you were first. I'll hold. Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Okay. So let's not forget though, open houses aren't only stuck at, you know, doing them live. You can do them via Zoom. You can still do them virtually. And I know that we've got agents that are doing that. Shelly was a part of a few agents who have participated in virtual open houses. And maybe that's one of the classes that we bring in June. Somebody make a note of that. But maybe one of the things that we do in June is virtual open houses and teaching agents how to handle that. But Shelly, do you want to?
Our MLS has crafted a new system within CoreLogic to allow for a virtual open house to feed on your listing. So that's pretty incredible in itself.
I was actually going to ask a question on that because I have been doing virtual open houses with a few of the signature agents, and we've gone from like one open house to actually 3 in one sitting, which has been pretty cool to get borrowers on there to be able to see 3 different areas or, you know, 3 different homes in a specific area or 3 different homes at a price range across the valley. One question though I had was on the signs, is it against the law to put your sign out there if you're saying I'm hosting a virtual open house on this specific home, check online at this date or something? Or
so that's an interesting point. And the point is the sign probably doesn't say that. It just says open house, right? And I doubt anyone who's a realtor that's turning these people in is going past the first sign. So I think that the marketing is important. I mean, if you put a sign out in front of a house and said, virtual showing today, go to this website, or you put a sign out, you know, directing someone to something that isn't there, I guess would be the point. But if you put a sign up saying that, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, and it's not causing people to mingle together. But I think what people are doing is they're not being creative like you are, Shelly. They're basically doing the same old things and not finding new ways around it. I think that creativity is what's going to lead more people to success on virtual open houses. And what we've actually seen is there's a tremendous amount of engagement. I mean, why is Instagram so popular in real estate? It's photos of people's homes. Why would virtual open houses be so popular? It's me touring a home without a pushy agent that I'm afraid of. But yet I'll give you all my info to get on the virtual showing. You know, so it's an interesting mindset for the consumer, I'm sure.
And if you ask people to register during the open house, the virtual open house through Zoom, then you've got all of their proper information because they won't even get a link to join until you have the proper email. I know, Todd, you're still on deck, but you said ladies first. So Janet.
I just want to emphasize that Chris is not exaggerating in the least when he talks about it's our relationship with government officials through our PAC dollars and our lobbying group that we're still working, because I'm on the National Committee for Risk Reduction, and we had a Western region phone call, and the poor agent on the call from Washington State, they have not worked in months. They are considered non-essential. They can do nothing. And they are really in a sad state of affairs. So even though there's a lot of restrictions, we're lucky to have the restrictions that we have and not be totally shut down.
Good point. Good point. Todd, you're up.
Oh, good. Hey,
it better be a great question.
Hold on a second. I've got to formulate a question. Can I get 10 seconds? So all I want to ask is, and I'm asking you, Juana, because you're really good at this. Can we create some kind of, let's just assume that at some point we're going to get to do open houses And when we get to do them, we're going to need permission from either seller or tenant. So we need to create a form for the agents in the company that they can use that will work for that. Something similar to the old tenant
Notice.
box thing, or something that just says yes.
Are you asking specific for, hey, there might be, you know, you might get COVID if you come to the open house, be careful the way that you show it?
I think that will be based on the directive that we get. But really what I would like it to say is we're expecting agent A to hold an open house on your property on such date from such time, and we just need your written permission. Please sign here so that we can do that. I don't know that it needs to go into a bunch of you know, insurance liability kind of stuff. So, but I think as a company, we need to have that form created and put onto my signature. Chris, what's it called? My signature real estate.net.
Right now, this is post quarantine, right? We're talking about DC.
We already have a form being created, so you don't have to do anything.
I was about to say something, but I just want to make sure it's for after, correct?
AC.
Yeah, AC. Go ahead, Shelly. I see your hand.
Two things that I wanted to state. So we were out in California this weekend in Big Bear. I don't even know if it was legal or not. We were in California this weekend. I know. I'm self-quarantining right now. Anyway, so I actually went into an open house. It started off as a yard sale, directionals as a yard sale that went into an open house. But as you go in there, the agent, you know, took our information. He didn't allow us to touch the sign-in sheet. We had to put booties on. We had to have, obviously everywhere in California, you have to have a face mask. And then we were not allowed to touch anything. Everything was open up. And truthfully, seeing the virtual open houses that I've been watching, it's almost the same type of visual feeling. Obviously, you're inside of the home and you can see more spatial, but you couldn't walk in and open up a closet. He had to come over there and open up a closet. We all had to stand in line to get in, basically. You know, and then when the person came out, he went in there and wiped whatever, sprayed his stuff in there. And so it's kind of a different experience. I just wanted to throw that out there for maybe what open houses will look like for us, whether that was legit or not. And then I wanted to throw, it's definitely not me that's doing these virtuals. I have the pleasure of sitting in on these virtual open houses with your agents. So maybe your next agent panel would be Tyson, Tamara, and Bobby to throw them out there, because I know that they are doing them a lot. That's all I got.
Very cool. Thank you. Tyson says it's the same thing in Utah. That's how they're doing open houses out there as well. And Chris, you had mentioned a form that's coming out from the state.
So we have a couple of forms that, okay, so first off, the state doesn't provide forms, but we're providing forms in this case.
Well,
right?
I think, and you know, just a bigger discussion on that. I think a lot of our forms should come from the state, especially for things like this. I mean, we only have.
They don't have a budget like GeoVera does. So the forms could come from the state, but they won't be as nice. The paper will be crummy. But I want to point out there's 3 forms that are coming. GeoVera is working on a hold harmless, which the hold harmless itself that I've seen works both ways. It works for a seller allowing you access and a buyer getting access. It's basically a waiver. It says you understand that, you know, we're in a society where all of these things are happening and you're taking it at your own risk. The second form is a release for your client, for the brokerage to get a release from the consumer that you're listing or representing as a buyer, based on all the things that are happening and the ability for us to market the property. So those are being worked on with the state in correlation with GLVR and the other locals in the state. The other one is yours, V, from the PAG that you gracefully agreed to sit on after I forced you, to work on payment arrangements. And so, you know, I don't really, I think that we did enough in the beginning. We got very proactive with property managers, with forbearance issues, that I really don't believe that we're going to have this mass foreclosure process that will happen. I think the bigger thing will be commercial foreclosures because of businesses that have gone out of business and things like that. But I think the residential side, people are working together. I've seen more communication now than I've ever seen in our industry as far as property managers, landlords, and tenants talking together. And so we did create a document for that should be rolled out very soon.
Yep. And one of the things that I've noticed throughout this process is and not that it ever existed before, but there's really no north versus south. We're and I hate to say we're in this together, because anytime I have a happy hour, that's our like trigger words to drink, is we're in this together, right? But everybody is really working together to get through this whole scenario. But you had mentioned the property management PAG that you stuck me on fighting and kicking. But I am so thankful that you put me on this PAG, because I know, look at that. Because it's really important getting, once we're out of this scenario, what happens with the tenants, because the directive specifically states that you are encouraged as a property manager or a landlord to work out a payment plan within 30 days after the shelter in place has been lifted. Now, the unfortunate thing is that it says you're encouraged to, and we've been going back and forth in this PAG, and well, what if tenants just don't want to? What if tenants don't want to pay that money back and just feel like it is free money? The directive wasn't specific enough. So we're hoping through our lobbyists, through the judges that we've been talking to within eviction court, as well as through the attorneys that are looking at the CARES Act very specifically, to see if there is something that we can pull out for language that essentially says you must work within the first 30 days to come up with a payment plan, because I think landlords are going to be the one that are going to suffer if we can't come up with some form of solution for the last 2 months of non-payment. And so let's go back to that really quickly. Is in that PAG, one of the things that we discovered is that through the CARES Act, if a landlord takes a deferment on their mortgage, then during the time of that deferment, they can absolutely not evict a tenant during the entire deferment time period. And so that to me was a very like, oh crap, because when we first got into this, that's all we kept telling our landlords is go call your bank, go call your mortgage provider and tell them that you need a deferment, or tell them that you need some form of plan that, you can work out with them so you can pay later. And now the CARES Act is saying if you did that, landlord, you can't evict a tenant for any reason during that time frame, which is unfortunate. So we're still diving deep into that. Stay tuned to our sales meetings and our newsletters to hear more about it. But I think, that's really important. Did anybody want to add anything to that? Ask any questions?
No, I just want to say that the only problem with this, no matter what happens, will be the layers of the onion, right? I mean, we have federal policies that are being created based on federal regulations. We have state agencies that are federally regulated, such as HUD. And then we have state agencies themselves that are creating regulation that are by the governor's orders. And then we have local municipalities that are creating policies off of that. And so no matter what happens, the most engaged, informed realtors are going to be the most successful, because spending time in class, I mean, I could see this being CE classes, right? Because you should be getting CE credit for this right now.
For this meeting.
For this meeting. But the whole idea is that the information, unfortunately, is going to change weekly. It's going to be updated weekly. It's going to be debated and fought. We haven't even really seen Congress act on a lot of these things that have happened, except for trying to get money to people, which hasn't really been that effective in the way it should have been, but it's been more than it was in the past. So I think the whole thing is be prepared for the whole dynamic to change on a regular basis.
Yep.
So,
yes, Josh.
I just want to say I'm super impressed. And I don't know if people are picking up on this, but super impressed at the level that you guys, Chris, Bondana, Janet, the amount of time that you guys spend, the amount of information that you gather. So many agents don't realize that there's this other side of real estate that isn't buying and selling a house. It's protecting our industry and protecting our livelihood. And so I'm just super impressed on how much of that you guys do. It's weird that you guys enjoy doing it. Let me also say that, but I'm just say thank you, because I know it takes up an enormous amount of time away from your ability to sell real estate. So I hope people are picking up on that. It's super impressive.
Shelly?
Well, I was
Thank
just
you.
going to chime in. I do agree as well that you guys are super impressive just for providing this information. But no, I wanted to share just as far as changes to things that are happening. We also just got a change to the forbearance from a lending standpoint, which changes the dynamics where they were saying if you got a forbearance, you either had to pay it off or set up that payment arrangement, and then you could not purchase again for another 12 months. They've actually decreased that timeline, and now it's actually only 3 months. So I would assume, or to your point of everything is changing all the time, and like this just changed for us last week, but they shortened that time frame for somebody to re-enter the market again if they happen to go into forbearance. So hopefully they'll do the same for your tenants and such.
Thank you. And we, you know, sticking on with the whole, you know, lending perspective, we are seeing that tenant occupied properties, and this was something that came down from LVR, from the president. Actually, it was in a class that I was teaching, a CE class, where a board of directors from the local association said, hey, I've been told that even tenant occupied properties where tenants allow you to go in for appraisals or inspections or things like that, that's allowed as long as they give you permission. So that's how people are getting past the no showing for tenant properties. And again, peeling back that onion, because there's so much to be, and here, I think the warning here from me specifically is that you have, let's say you have a contract in place, and that's how you've gotten around the showing option for tenant occupied properties. Tenants are allowing you in for appraisals and inspections. Now you can ask them. Now, you know, you're essentially showing the property or getting people in there, because it's not really called showings. You're allowing people in there. Now that's if a tenant says it's okay. Let's say you're in the middle of a contract now, you're 15 days out, and the tenant says, guess what? I'm not comfortable anymore. You can't come into my home. Now you're stuck with a contract that you have to act on. So I'm a little concerned about that a little bit too. Go ahead, Chris.
Let me be really clear on that, because it's kind of important. So of course, when this regulation came out, everyone reacted to it. The showing word meant access to the governor's staff, right? Access to the property. However, when it was talked over with the AG, we basically said, because everyone was pressing, can I do this? Can I do this? We got to know. So we went to the AG and said, can we do this? And he says, I don't know. Basically, the way the word was written, and I'm not kidding you, that's what really happened. I don't know, but we're not going to focus on that. Just be mindful of your industry. So there was a gray enough area that said if you were under contract on a property, and that's why this didn't come out initially, because it was like, no, you can't do it. If you were under contract, it wasn't considered a showing like we just said. It was considered access. And I'm not bringing a group of people every day, several people all the time. I'm scheduling one access point that I'm putting on your calendar. I'm making it around your schedule, however it is, be in the house or out of the house. And so basically it was deemed that that was acceptable, and that most likely no one's going to turn somebody in for that issue. However, the same carve out was that if the tenant got really upset, they had a hotline at the AG's office that they could call up and say, they're forcing me to show my home. That would have to be figured out whether that was really that showing piece or it wasn't. And they would rather have to deal with those individual issues than to say industry-wide you can gain access. No matter what happens in this next phase, I believe in phase 2, that access point will be completely allowable. If you're in transaction on a property, there'll be no question that you'll be able to get access to the property. However, whether it's your seller or it's a tenant, you should absolutely get written permission. I don't care if they're your cousin on your mother's side. You need to get something in writing that says you agree that it's okay for me to access this property for these reasons. An email would suffice, but I would always have something in your SkySlope file that shows that you did your due diligence.
Agreed. Yeah, always have enough backup. Well, and so this brings me to the point where I actually spoke with the president of the association, and I said, well, you know, this is what someone told me during class, and I want to clarify this with you because I want to make sure. He says, well, you know, if a tenant, for instance, provides you with notice that they're moving out, so they give you 60-day notice that they're moving out of the property and they don't intend on renewing their lease, well, now you've got those 60 days to market and show that home because they've essentially given you permission. And it was funny because he said it during the PAG meeting, and we had, of course, a couple of judges on there, and I said, look, I go, I think the more you talk, the worse it gets. So do me a favor, like just, well, my attorney, you know, the attorneys are saying that, and that's actually not true, right? I mean, if you are in any way showing the property, I recommend well, first of all, if it's tenant occupied, don't do that at all, because they haven't given you permission to go into the home. They're just giving you, information. They're telling you that they're moving out of the property. And so I know that there's a lot of things that have come down from different places, and everybody has their interpretation, and more so than ever, talk to your brokers and figure this out. And the other thing is we are constantly in our virtual office hours having these types of discussions on a daily basis, right? This is what happened. This is what we're going to do. This is what we advise. And so whether someone is in that room or not, we're talking about it. And so come and be that fly on the wall to listen to essentially our mastermind of what's happening. That was another plug for the virtual office hours that we do all the time, every day, Monday through Friday, 10:30 to 11:30. Just a reminder. What am I missing? Did we cover all the bases? Does anybody have any questions that they want to jump in on?
The only thing we didn't talk about is if I'm in contract on a property and we're going to create a lease back provision, right? We're going to lease the property back, or the seller is going to, hold over in a certain period of time. And I've had a lot of questions on that, because one side of the coin is, am I creating a tenant relationship now that I put someone into a lease on a property that could be for a longer term, or does it not matter because it's part of a sale? And so I've had that question now 3 times, and I've had 3 different answers by state agencies to talk about that. But I think the whole context is, I would be extremely mindful of the fact that before you do anything, that you talk with your seller or your buyer about the parameters of what could happen. The reason why we even created that COVID-19 addendum was to protect a transaction that happens during this crisis, because there could be factors that we don't even know that could affect us, right? So that addendum, you can't just take the COVID addendum and say, wow, I've got a COVID addendum, no one signed it, but we're going to use this in the transaction. It doesn't work that way. But now that you're a listing agent on a property, if you're getting an offer and it doesn't have a COVID addendum, it might behoove you to put one in. Or if you're a buyer's agent and you're writing one, it might behoove you to put one in, because the force majeure clause would allow that if some random act of craziness happens at our estate, you would have an exit policy for that. But again, there's no constables to do evictions. If I had a tenant that was even violating health and safety guidelines, getting them out of the home is going to prove to be troublesome, even though that piece is allowable. So, good luck on that, but stay in touch with your brokers to help you through it.
Perfect. Let's see, I got a question. What about vacant properties that are on lockbox? I'm not quite sure what exactly that means, though. Is it to show? Is it for open houses? Because open houses are not allowed, vacant or tenant occupied or anything. I'm assuming vacant properties, you're asking for showings. You can show those properties now. I'm still, in fact, showing properties that are vacant for tenants to move into. So that's still allowed.
Yep.
And so we answered that. And then there was, what if it's just a few days after close of escrow for convenience? I don't know what that means, Linda.
The rent back. They're meaning the rent back for a few days after. Listen, if everyone's on board, fantastic. No one's going to rock the boat. It's when there's a problem that wasn't adequately disclosed that you're going to have the issue. So if the seller says, I need to rent back for 3 days after closing, everyone's in agreement and they're going to go through the process, great. Don't rock the boat. But I just think, the whole idea is that you need to have the conversation with your client when that seller says, well, wait a minute, I might be able to stay in this house for free for a couple of months. You just don't want to have that conversation at that point with your client.
Cool. And then Tammy asked, repairs flooring that was initiated just prior to COVID-19 and had to be postponed to tenant occupied property. Do we have a form or preferred verbiage? So it's not considered a showing, right? Because there's repairs that are being done. So if you have the tenant's permission to go in and the insurance companies, so there are still exceptions for certain things like that. What we're saying is that you shouldn't be showing property that is tenant occupied. You should not assume that just because a tenant has provided you notice that they are not going to intend to renew, that is automatic permission for you to start showing the property. Showing tenant occupied properties as of right now, and it could change tonight, but as of right now is not allowed. So
the seller still has the responsibility to provide a tenant or the owner with all the health and safety guidelines they would have to under the regular state law before this. So if you have a massive plumbing leak or something that happens, it's still the owner's responsibility to get that fixed and the tenant to allow that to happen under circumstances that make sense. But like, I've heard a property manager saying, we're not going to come fix your, broken pedestal somewhere It's just not going to happen until this is all over. It just depends on the manager.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we talked about during that property management PAG was that even during this time when landlords are not getting paid rent from tenants because of the shelter in place, if their air conditioning unit goes out, guess what? That's an essential habitability issue that has to be addressed and has to be repaired per the agreement and per NRS. And so you have to, you know, I know it's one of those circumstances where landlords, we don't have money. How are we supposed to pay this? You know, technically, I know that in our property management division, all of our vendors know that once they go and do some repairs, that it is 30 days out before they actually get payment. So that landlord has a little bit of time and leeway. Now, most landlords who manage their own property may not have that already put in place with the vendors that they work with. Just know that you know, you can work out some form of payment plan, but those habitability issues have to be addressed during this time. Okay, so I know, sorry, Chris?
Don't stuff cardboard down the pipes. That's the letter I got from a property manager. Don't stuff things. You know, when toilet paper was very scarce, they were telling their tenants, you know, whatever you use for toilet paper, don't shove it down the pipes because fine you for that. That's seriously happening.
No, you're kidding. Seriously?
No, seriously.
That's amazing. All right, so I think we've answered all the questions. I know that there is a couple more, but here's the good thing is that right after this, we are all, every one of us is going to, maybe not Shelly. Shelly, are you going to come on? Is going to be on our virtual office hour. The link for that will be posted in your Agents of Signature page so that you can come on and ask the questions that you might not have gotten answered here. Yes, Todd?
I can't figure out when I raise my hand what looks best, like this, like that. Anyway.
Well, there's actually a raise hand button on your thing, but it's okay. I got you.
Push it every time and my hand goes up, so I hear you. I wanted to say, because I know we're getting ready to get off, but I want to say, I wanted to bring up one subject that I know that you don't know anything about. And can I do that now, or do you have more that you need to cover?
No, I'm done. I think we covered everything we've got. I know Shelly's got a few things that she wants to cover, but it's fine. What were you saying, Chris?
Okay, so guys, one thing that I get to do every day is I get to look at other agents' production, whether it's in our company or outside the company, and get to see whose like production's going up, whose production's going down, like where they've been over the last 12 months. And so one thing that I've been trying to do is kind of figure out what's the common denominator. As I look at agents whose production is going up month over month and year over year, what's their common denominator? Like, what do they do that makes them different than everybody else? I'm in conversation with an agent right now that he's been in the business a little over a year, and he's done 15 buyer sides in just over a year, which is awesome. That's a great number, right? And so I'm like, what does this guy do that's different than every other agent I know that's been in the business for a year? And here's what I'm coming up with. And no one on here is going to be happy to hear this, but it's come down to one thing, and it's script practice. Like, these agents that are being productive and successful and doing transactions at a high level, they're dedicating some time every day of their business to doing script practice. And I know people don't like to hear that because script practice is super scary.
But
nobody wants to do it. And here's what so every day, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so it's not every day, it's Tuesday, Wednesday.
are you doing a plug right now?
At 9 a.m. Signature, we do a script practice virtually on Zoom. Like, you don't even have to get out of your house. You can just, make your screen black. You can put up a really cool picture of yourself and just not have a video so nobody can see you. That's all cool. But here's the other offer. You can come on and just listen. Like, people get afraid to actually practice in front of other people, and I hear you. But you can just come on and listen to the script practice happening. You can come on and listen to the advice given after script practice happens. It's one of the best ways to accelerate your business the fastest. Like, everyone's always worried about leads. I need more leads. What you really need is you need the ability to convert leads. And that comes from script practice. So here's my direct invite to everybody in the company, 9 o'clock Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Tyson will post the link to that. And come on, even if you don't want to talk, cool, I'm good. Come and listen to what happens there, what gets said, what people do. And I promise you one thing, over the next 12 months, you'll see an increase in your business if you'll do this routinely. Janet.
Could somebody send me that Zoom link if it's a different link so I can put it in the newsletter?
It is, yes. No, it's the same link that it's been. Okay, so hold on. Two things just happened. Todd, thank you for the script practice information. Hopefully agents will join on. Janet, Brandon actually just posted it in our chat. The meeting ID number is, it's zoom.us, right? And then you can just put in the meeting ID number, which is
It's the same one as our manager's meeting.
No, she wants Todd's script practice link for the newsletter.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Tyson's going to post it.
Tyson will email you with it.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one thing I want to add before we go on to the next point, and it's about the offices. So if you all don't know, all of the offices are doors open, staffed. We're not asking everyone to come in and hang out, you know, if you have nothing to do today, but definitely we're open for business. We've remained open in our Summerlin location, cutting checks, but now we have staff in each of the locations. Please be mindful of all the COVID guidelines that we put together, the sanitization stations in the office, wiping down the conference rooms. You're going to be signed in by the person at the front desk when you walk in the office. If you have clients, please prepare them for the fact that we're going to ask them for their name so that we can sign them in. It's for safety for everybody. We want to make sure we know who's in the office, who's flowing through there. Please, if you can avoid it, don't use secondary doors, come through the main entrance. We would ask that you do that so that we know who is there as well. If you use a conference room, it's by appointment. If you want to schedule time to sit face-to-face with a broker because you haven't seen my face in a while, please set an appointment for that. We want to be mindful of our staff that, you know, they're protected as well, just like we're protecting our agents and your clients. So we're here for you. Just let us know. And then Todd, I want to answer the point that you said. What do those agents have? Whether it's script practice or anything else, they have grit. The agents that are getting on, they're educating themselves, they're getting out the market. There's agents right now door knocking. Now they're door knocking with face masks and they're being extremely protective, but they're taking listings. And so I think the whole thing is that if you have the grit to make it through a pandemic and sell houses at a high level, you're going to sell houses in any market after this. And so I think that one thing I see from the agents here at Signature is you're doing everything possible. We're doing everything possible to keep you engaged in your business. And Todd's right. You could have 100 leads, but if you can't tell them what to say and sell them, it won't matter how many leads you get.
Yeah, well, we had an agent that did a listing appointment through a window, right? Like talking
He took it with him when he left.
He what?
Nothing, bad joke.
Okay. Shelly, before we finish here, and I know we're running out of time, where are rates today? Just tell me that, and then be in the virtual office hours to talk about other stuff.
Okay, yeah, rates are actually still good. We're in the low threes, 3 1/8, 3 1/4 for FHA and conventional financing. So really good, nice and steady.
Nice.
And low.
Fantastic. So get your butts in here and get a loan, right? Get your clients and a loan. All right, you guys. I think that's it. We're at 10:30. We actually did a whole hour meeting. And we will be in the virtual office hour right after this. The ID for that, so you know, the meeting ID is 554-340-9119. Thanks so much. Make it a great week, Signature. We'll see you soon.